Well, the NHL Players Association has agreed to further negotiations around the league's proposed return to play format. What could this mean? Games on the horizon? Well, for more, we're joined by Rob Pizzo of CBC Sports. We reached him in his fortress of solitude. Rob, let's talk about how encouraging this news might be. What do you think?
John, but I want to kind of be that bucket of cold water, unfortunately. It's exactly what you said. The NHLPA have agreed to authorize further negotiations. We've been hearing about this 2014 format all week. Basically, the top 4 teams in each conference get a bye in the play-in rounds. The rest will play a best of 5, and those top 4 teams will play a round robin to determine seeding. So they were just waiting for the NHLPA to rubber stamp this. They didn't necessarily rubber stamp it. Like you said, they're going to continue negotiating, but they did say they like the format. This is basically a direction we can move in. But the press release was very clear that there are many other things that still need to be negotiated. Is this a step in the right direction? Of course it is, John. Obviously, anytime you've got some sort of agreement on what hockey might look like if and when it comes back, that's good news. But I, like you, have woken up to a lot of headlines that kind of make it sound like the NHL playoffs are starting tomorrow. There are still a lot of hurdles to go over here.
And, all right, if they were to get over what must be enormous logistical challenges, there'd be no audiences. They'd have to then, how would this play out if it did? Would wrap it up and then take a very short summer break and then start the season again in the fall? How does that?
Yeah, well, before we even get to that, John, I mean, the NHL decided to do, quote unquote, the easy part first. They wanted to figure out what the playoffs would look like. Let's face it, you put a bunch of hockey people in a room and say, figure out a playoff system. It's difficult, not impossible. But they left the hard part for second. Now, once this whole thing gets agreed upon, now you've got to worry about the hub cities. How many? Where are they? We've been hearing Vegas, maybe Edmonton. What are those hub cities going to look like? Will families be allowed there? And then there's, of course, that whole issue of, oh yeah, testing for COVID-19. How are we going to keep the players safe? How are we going to keep the staff safe? They haven't even begun to really talk about that publicly or really talk about how they're going to handle all that publicly. So yes, it's great. We've got this great 2014 format that both sides are at least saying it can work. We may have to tweak it, but there's still a lot to go. To answer your previous question, Gary Bettman has been pretty adamant that they have a lot of time. He says they're going to play into the summer, and if the season next year gets pushed, it gets pushed. It could even really get pushed conceivably to November or December. We could see the beginning of the next season starting there. But at least we've got 2 sides saying, okay, this works. Let's work on it.
Let's talk about the NBA, another big sports league that has so far not had its 2020 championship. So what about some kind of playoffs there? What do we know about the plans for basketball fans?
Well, if you remember, John, the NBA was the first league to shut down, which created that domino effect of everybody else. And they were also the first league to kind of say, yeah, we're going to allow players back into facilities to work out, albeit on a very limited basis, one-on-one, can't go near your teammates, far from full practices. Their timeline is still fuzzy, but a little bit more clear. We're expecting some guidelines from the league somewhere around June 1st, and they are hoping to be back on the court sometime perhaps late July or before the end of July. They also are looking at a hub situation. Vegas, again, was brought up. So a lot to go there, but at least they've got some rough dates that they're hoping could come to fruition so we could see some. But don't forget, they still are wondering if they're going to finish their regular season as well or go directly to the playoffs. A lot of questions there as well.
Yeah, Toronto Raptors fans, of course. Toronto Raptors going as defending champs, so it could be a strange scenario. Could hold the title for 2 years if they don't organize the playoffs. Let's talk baseball. They're trying to start their season as well. Owners have had some scenarios. What do we know about the possibility of baseball taking place?
It's funny, John. You heard me say that hockey did the easy part first, the hard part second. Baseball did the reverse. They had this 67-page document that kind of leaked to the press about what baseball will look like if and when they come back. And this thing was complete with rules, diagrams, exactly what they're going to do to keep safe. And it sounds funny to maybe non-baseball or non-sports fans, but they got right down to the specifics of no spitting. When there's an out, there's no throwing the ball around the horn. Exactly how showers are going to be taken. Where players are going to sit. Because there's no fans, they're actually going to make players sit in the stands for social distancing. Not much was said about actual baseball and rules and what they're going to do, other than the fact that obviously it's going to be a shortened season. So it's interesting to see the way the NHL kind of went about it. We're hearing all about the playoff format. It's kind of, going to be honest, as a hockey fan, fun to talk about playoffs as opposed to testing for at least a few minutes, whereas baseball went the reverse way. And that whole document was basically talking about safety issues, no fist bumps, no high fives, no hugs, no anything. It's going to be, in short, John, regardless of what sport you're watching, it's going to look very, very different when it comes back. Aside from the fact that there's no fans, a lot of things that we're so used to seeing just aren't going to be there. But obviously, we've never had a situation like this before.
That pretty much sums up our whole world these days. Rob, always a pleasure. Take care of yourself.
Thanks, John. You too.
Rob Pizzo with CBC Sports. And for more on the latest sports, check out Rob's video. You can go to CBCsports.ca.